Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, speaking in Moscow, says he has serious doubts over US intentions ahead of a second round of talks tomorrow. It comes after Russia's Sergei Lavrov said that his nation is ready to play any role in Iran's nuclear talks. Yemen's Houthi rebels say they have launched missiles at US and Israeli aircraft carriers. It comes after a US airstrike on Yemen's Ras Issa fuel port that has killed at least 74 people, according to Houthi-run state media. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the US will move on from Russia-Ukraine peace talks if no progress is made within days. His comments from Paris come as Vladimir Putin confirms the end of an energy strike moratorium. Hamas has called for pressure to end Israel's aid blockage on Gaza following another breakdown in peace talks. The militant group have offered to release all hostages for an end to the war after rejecting a partial ceasefire. US Vice President J.D. Vance has met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni on his visit to the European country. Vance's visit follows a meeting between Meloni and President Donald Trump at the White House. Bangladesh has called on Pakistan to issue a formal apology for what it calls a genocide committed during the 1971 Liberation War. Pakistan expressed willingness to hold discussions settling those issues. 4 people, including 2 British tourists, have died after a cable car crashed near Naples in northern Italy. The mountain cable car plunged to the ground after one of the support cables snapped. We start off with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who has offered full support for renewed nuclear negotiations between the US and Iran. Speaking at a joint press conference with Iran's top diplomat Abbas Araghchi in Moscow, Lavrov said Russia is ready to mediate or assist in any role acceptable to both sides. Lavrov stressed that only a nuclear-focused deal is realistic. He warned against adding unrelated issues, calling it highly risky. He said Iran remains committed to the Non-Proliferation Treaty and emphasised the importance of respecting Iran's legitimate interests. Araghchi said Iran remains sceptical of US intentions but is entering the next round of talks with full determination. He called out unrealistic demands from Washington and said he has serious doubts over US intentions, warning they could block progress. Still, he expressed hope that a deal is possible if the US shows some flexibility. The second round of indirect US-Iran nuclear talks will take place in Rome on April the 19th. Oman, which mediated the first session in Muscat, confirmed the venue, thanking Italy for its support. Here is what Abbas Araghchi has said.
جدی نسبت به نیات و انگیزه‌های طرف آمریکایی داریم، ولی به هر حال ما در مذاکرات فردا با جدیت، جمهوری اسلامی ایران با جدیت و با اراده کامل شرکت میکنه. ما برای یک راه حل صلح‌آمیز برای برنامه هسته‌ای صلح‌آمیز ایران کاملا آمادگی داریم. اگر اراده مشابه در طرف مقابل وجود داشته باشه و درخواست‌های غیر منطقی و غیر واقعی نداشته باشند، به نظر من رسیدن به یک توافق.
Well, Iran's uranium enrichment remains a key sticking point. US envoy Steve Witkoff has called for a full halt, which Tehran has rejected, insisting its program is peaceful and non-negotiable. Well, joining us to discuss these latest developments is Scott Morgan, a security analyst, joining us from Washington, DC. Scott, thank you very much for being here. Obviously, those comments that we've heard there from Abbas Araghchi and also previous comments from Sergei Lavrov, this Iran-Russia unity that's been shown, how important could that potentially be for a nuclear deal which might be agreed between Iran and the US?
It is very important because As in the previous deal and in the proposed new deal, where Iran is expected to transfer its nuclear stockpiles to a third party, the, con- the country that is actually expected to Russia is expected to be the country where the
We seem to have lost Scott for the moment, so we will move forward. And Bangladesh has raised long-standing issues with Pakistan during their first foreign secretary level talks in 15 years held in Dhaka. Bangladesh demanded a public apology from Pakistan for the atrocities committed during the 1971 war and called for compensation of 4.3 billion US dollars as its share of joint assets after East Pakistan became an independent nation. Pakistan's foreign ministry described the meeting as a constructive and forward-looking engagement in a cordial environment, covering the full range of bilateral issues from politics and trade to cultural exchange and defence cooperation. Bangladesh's Foreign Secretary Jassim Uddin has announced that Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar is scheduled to visit Bangladesh on April the 27th and 28th, with hopes that direct flights between the two countries will begin soon. Meanwhile, Bangladesh's ties with India have become increasingly tense. Bangladesh's interim leader, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus, has criticised India for sheltering former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in the country and sought her extradition without any positive response. Yunus has meanwhile sought to improve relations with Pakistan, India's rival in recent months. He met Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif several times, and a high-level Bangladeshi military delegation made a rare visit to Pakistan in January and held talks with Pakistan's Army Chief General Asim Munir. In February, Bangladesh's Navy took part in a multinational maritime exercise organised by Pakistan off the Karachi coast. After Hasina's exit, Bangladesh and Pakistan resumed direct trading for the first time in years. Direct flights between the countries are expected to resume soon, and visa procedures have been eased while India stopped visas for Bangladeshis exempt for medical emergencies. The central government of India has also announced the withdrawal of the transshipment facility previously extended to Bangladesh. India's Ministry of External Affairs withdrew the facilities, citing logistical challenges and congestion at Indian ports and airports. Well, joining us to discuss these developments is Prashanta Kumar Shil, an academic and a political commentator joining us from Dhaka in Bangladesh. Well, thank you, Prashanta, for being here. We first need to look at these relations between Bangladesh and Pakistan. Can you provide us some more insights on these relations and these conversations that are ongoing and have been ongoing since the fall of Sheikh Hasina?
Definitely, it's a very strategic relations between in Bangladesh and Pakistan. First of all, let us discuss from our foreign policy. You know that the Bangladesh foreign policy is very strict and sticks to all Malays down. But what will happen? We see that the Bangladesh and Pakistan relation after 1970. You know that the 1970 when there is an independent from we just got independent from Pakistan. So there is an how brutality from here from we do understand the world understand what is happening in 1970 world. So that is one kind of issue, and that is a very strong concern between the rebel condition from Pakistan and Bangladesh. You know that the 1971 one is the factor. And another thinking, you know that the present time, we see that the present government have very good concern relation between in Bangladesh and Pakistan. It's a very strategic relation. You know that in Bangladesh, there is some ideological parties are here. So some the vote bank issues are in here. So that kind of party can address in Pakistan political identity and Pakistan political hegemony. But that is the one kind of issue, the vote bank scenario in here. So you know that the terms of it's the happening from secretary level meeting. This and after in 15 years later. So you know that is a actually is a very wonderful, very thinking for everyone, because you know that in South Asia there's two majority Muslim countries are just sitting beside the table. So that's one kind of new thinking for another and world politics also. And the happening, the inner of the box story here, you see that the what they can from deal from Bangladesh and Pakistan, you see that there is in trade, commerce, and everything, and also in maritime. You know that the maritime exchange is here. So I think it's a very Bangladesh Pakistan now the deal is not from the South Asian issues. It's a deal from a global aspect, the global phenomenal aspect. What is happening? What the reaction between the USA? What the reaction between the China, and what the reaction between and the Russia? So what is the planning to see the world? What is happening the next decades? To see that what the Bangladesh and Pakistan relation, how important it is, and what is then happening. You know that the 5th August from 2024, you know that the Sheikh Hasina, he can flee from in India. So that is in some very crucial relations from Bangladesh and India. So now the what is happening and how India can react, the number one, the point, and what the situation can Bangladesh can deal within Pakistan. So it's a happening for Bangladeshi people. You know that there is some sophisticated, some bargaining issues already. Bangladesh can mention there is some you know that the money can we are just and demand from money from 1971, and after that the time from Pakistan, and also we have a very strong argument to possess in Pakistan, that is from apology for our independence. So I think is that the whole story, whole concept is a new thinking and new dimension from the world politics, and the world determine and have a very crystal clear identification for that whole story.
Yes, Prashanta, I do want to look at this apology. Though conversations have been had and diplomacy seems to be improving, there is a point here that Bangladesh are looking for an apology for, and that relates to the Liberation War of 1971. They want an apology for what they're calling a genocide, with Pakistan seemingly willing to hold these discussions. What's the significance of this liberation war, and how would an apology go in continuing to build these relations between Bangladesh and Pakistan?
You know that I already mentioned that is in the Bangladesh Pakistan this time the meeting is not from economic ball meeting. It's not from development based meeting. It's one kind of political narrative meeting. You know that is in Bangladesh, there is some approaching from the Pakistan-related hegemonies created. Some of the political parties are here. They are the totally engrossed in Pakistan identity and ideology. So that is the one kind of vote bank politics. So one kind of thinking. And you know that the question, the general people in Bangladesh, they have a very sophisticated mind, the genocide of the Bangladesh in 1971. What the Pakistani military and other the Pakistani the occupied island. What is happening from 1972? We have been clustered in mind. We have a very sophisticated, very hard corner of the 1971. People are know and people are thinking, but the present time, you know, the present time that there is some situation, some volatile situation is created here, that the Pakistan hegemony is come, the some political Pakistani narratives here. So I think it's a very new dimension for Bangladesh. How Bangladesh can it be coped with, and how the Bangladesh can be privileged in the world politics and world game, because you know that there's some narrative aspect in Pakistan versus in Bangladesh. The world politics scenario, what what it is will be played, is it correct or incorrect? Is very good for Bangladesh, not good for Bangladesh? Is that happening? You know that already we see the last week from transshipment issues from India already mentioned from transshipment issues. So we see that there are some issues we haven't found the next some month, because there is some impact, the direct impact from, because in Bangladesh and Pakistan relation. I think this is my observation. And also, you know that the Pakistan is this time the Pakistan, the political condition is too much volatile. You know that there's some the conflict, some of the ideological conflict are there, and some the politically they have been from desperate. You know that there's some protests from the several areas from Pakistan, especially in the Baluch. The Baluch people are from protest from this government. And also, you know that in China there is some the campaign, anti-Chinese campaign from in Pakistan. So that is one kind of another issue. So Pakistan is already collapsed in their some ethnical and ideological clashes, and their economic is already collapsed. So how you can just deal with that kind of country from Bangladesh? What is the scenario you deal from Bangladesh and Pakistan? So the behind the story, I already mentioned there is some political narrative. You talk about the development issue, trade issues, visa issues, and everything. That is one kind of factor.
Yes, but Prashant, I apologise to have to cut you off, but we are unfortunately out of time. We will continue to cover the diplomacy between Bangladesh, Pakistan, and also those relations with India as well. And NewsX World is your place to get those. We do have some news coming now from the Middle East. An Israeli airstrikes overnight have killed 15 people in southern Gaza, including 10 members of the Baraka family. According to local officials, Gaza's civil defence reported the attack targeted homes in Bani Sahila near Khan Yunis. Israel has not confirmed the strike but says it is reviewing the reports. Let's listen in to what the victims have had to say.
زي ما الناس نايمة لا في مقاومة ولا في سلاح ولا فيش إلا على بفول ما شفنا إلا الانفجار طلعنا لقينا الناس مقطمين في الشارع قعدنا نلمنا الساعة 3 الصبح لحم الساعة 6 الصبح لقينا راس مقداد وإيده مقطع لقينا أطفال هذول دار شمعة هانا وأمهم لقينا عبد المزين هانا مش عارفين ليش اللي صار طب إيش في عنا يا ربي
احنا نايمين على الساعة 12 ما شفنا هالصرف اللي هو بينزل على دار جيراننا نزل علينا الردم ونزل علينا الخزانات ونزل علينا العمدات اللي ولد كان نايم في الغرفة طار هو واتخذ الخزانة خش عنا في قلب الغرفة بقيت أنا وأمه نايمين أطلعونا الناس والولد استشهد ودار جيراننا راح بيجي منهم 10 أنفار.
Meanwhile, Hamas has rejected Israel's latest interim ceasefire proposal. Israel offered a 45-day truce in exchange for 10 hostages, but Hamas demands a full end to the war. The group insists all 59 remaining hostages, of whom only 24 are believed to be alive, are freed as part of an agreement. Negotiations remain stalled as violence continues. Well, joining us to discuss this topic is Dr. Pansara Amarasinghe Kotalawala, a Defence University from Colombo. Well, thank you very much for being here. I want to look at the developments we've had first over a ceasefire negotiation and deal. Of course, Hamas saying that they're not willing to agree to a temporary ceasefire and are looking for a permanent ceasefire, releasing all of the remaining hostages. This is what Israel have been calling for. Do you think this might be a glimmer of hope for those in Israel and in Gaza that this war may be coming to an end soon?
Not at all. It is quite conspicuous that this war will not come to a sooner end as the situation remains rather bleak, because we need to understand the rationale behind the proposal coming from the Hamas, who is looking for a permanent ceasefire. And moreover, more than that, they have demanded from Israel to give them a permanent ceasefire, complete military withdrawal, which is highly unlikely by all means, because if you look at the past developments within Israel and also outside Israel, the Israeli military has not been in favor of the idea of a ceasefire, first and foremost. So we cannot completely hope for a sooner closure of the ceasefire agreement, the end of the war. And at the same time, we should also look at the fact that when Israel came up with the idea of a partial ceasefire agreement quite recently, they demanded from Hamas to withdraw from Gaza completely, the disarmament of Hamas through and through, which is also not possible because as a military organization, as a militant group, Hamas has been adhered to bearing weapons throughout this conflict. So in that context, I don't see that in foreseeable future, there won't be any avenue for the complete closure of the war. And at the same time, we need to understand the right-wing government in Tel Aviv has simply stated that if Hamas is not adhering to the demands of Israel, they would open the gates of hell, which means the complete continuity of the war in the days to come.
Yes, looking now at the strikes that we've had reported, of course, further deaths reported by Hamas-run military in the Gaza enclave. Situations, of course, are still difficult with the humanitarian crisis being reported with aid still blocked. We've recently heard from Israel that aid blockages will continue. Given that continuation, how is the situation on the ground and how might it develop as these ceasefire negotiations continue?
Precisely, it was on the 2nd of March that Israel came up with the complete blockade, which prevented the aid from air and land to Gaza. And after that, Israel accelerated all the military operations towards Gaza. And what happened today during this air raid is a blatant violation of international law by all means. But from a strategic point of view, this should be understood not in isolation. This should be understood in the context of the Israeli military doctrine, which is known as the Dahia doctrine. From that, what they're doing is, they have to push ahead. They need to strike most of the civilian targets. They have to debilitate the civilians in order to push the militants and the terrorists to stop the war. So with these circumstances, it becomes quite clear that the ceasefire agreement has come to a point of no return. In particular, Israel has a very strong ally from the Washington, D.C., who is completely different from the predecessor of the White House, with Joe Biden. The current president, Donald Trump, seems to be an ardent, the vocal supporter of the military efforts of the Benjamin Netanyahu. So in that context, all in all, what I can see is that we will not be able to see a fully fledged, the revival of the ceasefire agreement in the days to come. That is the bitter truth which we need to accept.
Dr. Amarasinghe, to bring an end to this discussion, I want to look at the trust with Hamas. Obviously, when the ceasefire deal was agreed, there were certain delays, according to Israel, regarding hostage releases. Some didn't go ahead as planned. Do you think that Hamas can be trusted by Israel, even if something is agreed on the release of these hostages dead and alive?
Correct. I think quite recently the pro-Israeli strategist Dr. Edward Luttwak commented on the status of Hamas, saying that it is quite ridiculous to rely on Hamas completely, because what Edward Luttwak argued was the fact that Hamas has never been a reliable organization throughout its history, because even when it comes to the ceasefire agreement, what Hamas expects from Israel is a complete withdrawal. On the contrary, what Israel expects is the release of all the hostages. And at the moment, 24 of them are presumed to be alive. So, and from that 24, still the Israeli intelligence have no clue about their whereabouts. So it's a matter of the trust. From Israeli, they're looking for the return of their hostages back to Israel. From the Hamas point of view, they simply want to put a closure to all the Israeli military endeavors in Gaza territory. So it's kind of a paradoxical situation. All in all, what we can see is that neither Hamas nor Tel Aviv seriously want to end the war. So it is likely to see the further escalation of the military endeavors led by the Israeli army.
Dr. Punsara Amarasinghe, thank you very much for joining us. That is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more of the latest breaking news from across the world.